Hello, and welcome to the Capital Gains Show. My name is Aaron, and in this show I defend Coca-Cola, I mean capitalism, and I criticize socialism. I want to do another video today about inequality. In my last video about inequality, I argued why it doesn't matter and why only poverty matters. In this video, I want to go a little bit further and argue that inequality can be associated and at least correlated with positive economic growth, more prosperity, more human happiness overall. In other words, the more inequality you have, the better off society may very well be. First, I want to just reiterate, inequality doesn't matter. Poverty does. What I've been seeing on the internet a lot lately is that the leftists and the socialists and communists have been whining a lot about inequality. They have been whining a lot less the past few years about poverty. 10 years ago, they complained a lot about poverty than they did about inequality, and nowadays they're complaining a lot more about inequality than they're complaining about poverty. Why? I'll tell you why. Because, like I explained in my last video, which I am linking in the description below, poverty is on the downtrend and it is at global historic lows. And poverty is lowest in the places that have the most free markets and private property rights, aka the most capitalism. Poverty is basically being solved before our very eyes by capitalism. It's minuscule now compared to where it even was 20 years ago. Globally speaking, and I'm talking about, I'm including like third world countries and stuff, not just the West and the first world countries where poverty was already solved, and then, but like poverty existed in all the other places. Now it's really going down pretty much everywhere, except in the socialist places, right? So what has been happening lately is that the left has been complaining more about inequality, or basically they're complaining about the spread between the super rich and the poor people, right? So, first off, poverty is more of an absolute thing. Like whether or not you have enough calories to eat is an absolute thing. Whether or not you have a roof over your head is an absolute thing. Whether or not you have a job or or the right to your property, those kind of things are absolute things. Inequality is a relative thing. You can have high inequality in a world where everyone's rich, and then you can have no inequality in a world where everyone's poor. It can happen. So what I see when I see people complain about inequality is I see a jealousy kind of argument, an argument from envy and greed counterintuitively. They say the rich people are the greedy ones, but they're the ones bitching and moaning that they don't have what someone else has, and they want it just to be given to them rather than earn it legitimately. What complain about inequality is the crab mentality. One crab tries to climb out of the pot and the other crabs pull it back in, because if I can't have what you have, then you shouldn't be allowed to have it either. That's the mentality. Wikipedia even has an article about this. I'm going to show it to you right now. Crab mentality, also known as crabs in a bucket or pot. I usually call it crab in a pot, whatever. It's a way of thinking of if I can't have it, neither can you. The metaphor is derived from a pattern of behavior noted in crabs when they are trapped in a bucket. While any one crab could easily escape, its efforts will be undermined by others, ensuring the group's collective demise. Now, here's the thing about inequality. A lot of people think that inequality is associated with more poverty. Like the more inequality you have, the more poverty you have, and that's simply not the case. It feels intuitive. It feels to a lot of people, aka the economically ignorant people, that poverty is going to be higher in the places with more inequality. But in this case, as in many cases in reality, the intuition is wrong and the truth is incredibly counterintuitive. You have, generally speaking, more poverty in places with less inequality or near zero inequality. Now, they've done studies on this, and they've shown that places with a higher Gini coefficient, the Gini coefficient measures inequality. The higher the Gini coefficient, the more inequality there is. Places with a higher Gini coefficient are oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes happier than the places with a lower Gini coefficient. There was a study done. The paper name is Income Inequality and Well-Being in the U.S., Evidence of a Geographic Scale and Measure Dependence. This paper was published in August 2016. I'll link to that paper in my description below. But basically, I want to show you what the meat of it, what the paper sums up in a table. Here we go. Income inequality and SWB in large regions, which basically means like, happiness or whatever. So you see there's an MSA Gini and a state Gini, the Gini coefficient. Notice how on the right-hand column, the Gini coefficient is a little bit higher. It's 1.099. or in parentheses, 1.8, and then in the left-hand column it's it's 1.079, or in parentheses 0.126. So the second column, the right-hand column, has higher Gini coefficient, aka higher inequality, and yet it has a higher rate of enjoyment, a higher rate of happiness, a lower amount of stress, and a lower amount of worry. So the stress is at 0.245 in the place with the higher Gini, whereas the stress is 0.274 in the place with the lower Gini. And the worry is higher in the place with the lower Gini, and it's lower in the place with the higher Gini. So the place that has more income inequality has more enjoyment, more happiness, less stress, and less worry. Now, can higher inequality be good? Yes, but not always. It's not necessarily so. And why? Why does it not always correlate with more happiness? Because inequality doesn't really matter. Only poverty matters. Inequality is relative. It's a meaningless kind of measurement, really. It's an eye of the beholder kind of thing. It's not absolute like poverty is. Now, let me give you a couple of examples. Okay, first off, here's an example where we can show how the place with more inequality can very well be the place with less poverty. So the title of this graph is, which society would you rather live in? There's societies A, B, and C. Society A has 90 people in poverty, 10 poor people who are not in poverty, 0 middle class people, 0 rich people, for a total of 100 people. The inequality rate in society A is very small, but the poverty rate is 90%. In society B, you've got 50 people in poverty, 40 poor people, 5 middle-class people, 5 rich people. So there's more inequality in society B than in society A, but the poverty rate is almost half of society A. There's only 50 people in poverty. So already you see that it can very well be the case that a place with more inequality can have less poverty and overall more prosperity, more happiness, better humans overall. Society C, in this example, has only 25 people in poverty, 25 poor people, 25 middle-class people, and 25 rich people. It's got the most inequality, but it has the lowest poverty, and it has the most prosperity. So higher inequality in this example can absolutely be correlated with a better society, a happier society, a more prosperous society. Now, let me give you one more example. That previous example I gave you compared 3 societies with various levels of poverty. Now, in this example, I'm going to show you just how meaningless inequality can really be. In this example, you got 3 societies, and all 3 societies have the same rate of poverty, 5%. Only 5 people are in poverty in Society A, Society B, and Society C. In Society A, you've got 95 poor people not in poverty, 0 middle-class people, 0 rich people. So even though the poverty rate is low, the number of poor people is very high, and the inequality rate is very low in Society A. Then in Society B, you've got, again, 5 people in poverty, then you've got 45 poor people, then you've got 50 middle-class people. So there's more inequality, but the poverty rate is the same, and Society B is measurably better off and happier than Society A. Then in Society C, you've got, again, 5 people in poverty, 29 poor people not in poverty, 33 middle-class people, and 33 rich people. So again, we got Society C with the most inequality, but it's got the same poverty rates as the other 2 societies, and Society C has the most prosperity, the most happiness. Now, ask yourself this: which society would you rather live in of these 3 options? If you could only choose one of these 3, Which one would you rather live? And I'm not saying you're going to necessarily be in the poor class or the middle class or the rich class or whatever. We don't know that. And you don't know that. You don't know what you're going to end up. Let's say you're a refugee and you just have to decide one of these 3 places that you can move to. Which one are you going to choose? Which one is going to give you the best chance of having the most amount of happiness and prosperity and security and so on? Which one do you think is going to give you your best shot? Which one do you think is going to have you surrounded by the most high quality people? Which one do you think you're going to make the most friends in and feel the most secure in and feel like you have the greatest chances in, huh? You're going to say society A, where 95 people are poor and nobody's rich, no one's in the middle class? Would you maybe say society C, where 1/3 of the people are rich, 1/3 of the people are middle class, and 1/3 of the people are poor, huh? Which one? Be honest with yourself, Now, obviously, some leftist ideologues will say, no, I'd rather, be with the poor people. Yeah, sure you would, buddy. That's not what happens in real life. You know where the refugees choose to go? They choose to go to Society C, by and large. They're going to choose to go to the place with the most prosperity, where they think they have the most chance of also being prosperous. And in real life, you know what? The Starbucks socialists, the first world socialists that already live in prosperity, they don't pack their bags and go to the poor places. Just because those places have less inequality. No, they know better. They know that, despite all their rhetoric, despite all their tweets denouncing capitalism, they know that they're going to be better off and happier in the place with more prosperity, despite the fact that it has also more inequality. Okay, the people are fleeing on makeshift boats to get to the rich places, not the other way around. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what governments do to fight inequality. You can pass laws and mandates to fight inequality, but there's only one direction they can fight it in. Inequality can be reduced by mandates and laws, but you cannot reduce inequality by mandating people be richer. You can only reduce inequality by mandating rich people get made poorer and their resources get redistributed, but it doesn't necessarily reduce poverty, and it doesn't increase prosperity for society overall. Usually what happens when you pass laws to reduce inequality, you're punishing poor people, you punish growth, you punish prosperity. Remember that first chart I showed you from that paper? The places that have lower inequality and have less rich people have less happiness, more worry, more stress, and so on. You cannot mandate the elimination of poverty. You can only mandate the elimination of wealth. So the laws only go one way. You can't vote yourself to post scarcity. You can't vote your way to prosperity, but you can vote your way to poverty. You can outlaw wealth. You can outlaw the generation of wealth. You cannot outlaw the existence of poverty. Poverty is the starting point. That's where everyone starts, and then you have to build and work your way towards prosperity. So the only thing you can do is put a lock and key and put a gate on that stairway and stop people from going up. You can't put a lock and a gate and stop people from just, going down in poverty because you started in poverty, okay? So when you pass a mandate that forbids a certain amount of wealth, what you're doing is you're forbidding prosperity for a society as a whole up to that certain point where you put that limit on. That's how much you retard prosperity when you pass that kind of law. You're forbidding economic growth, or you're retarding it, and you're forbidding progress, and you're mandating more poverty. You're gonna make poverty more likely for more people. And the places that don't have the high progressive taxation or the high taxes, period, the places that don't have the massive redistributionist policies, the places that do not put a limit on inequality are the places that are going to have more wealth, more prosperity, less poverty, more happiness, less stress, and so on. So when you let the natural economic marketplace, kind of do its thing, you let these natural economic systems and interactions take place, you're going to see generally more inequality and less poverty. Thanks for watching.